Good afternoon. Thanks for such an amazing introduction, first of all. Yes, my name is Evgeni, and I think I will do slightly different talk than the ones you've seen today, but also over the last 2 days. I'm going to talk about why everyone should use AR, VR content already themselves, or how we say gamify yourself using AR and VR. And the story was already kind of introduced by Annette. We're coming as an AR game studio as Toywheel, and we've seen Apple featured us globally as the first AR mobile game, but we've seen still kind of a ceiling at some point with the downloads, and we were thinking, how can we possibly use the constraints of the current technology to our advantage? And that's how we founded Gamewheel as the B2B product. And that product, I'd like to take you through the logic, more or less, because I think you probably know everything about AR, VR already by now. But I want to tell you a little bit more about why in the advertising space, AR, VR is solving a very crucial issue right now. And I think a lot of game studios and agencies who are actually present here, they are mostly getting revenue from the innovation budgets or branding budgets of the big brands. That's kind of what I think, or they do entertainment parks maybe. But generally, you can build a business based on the current technology state already. And that's why I want to start with this very complicated slide. I have to use one of these BCG kind of slides always in the beginning. So there are 3 trends which change the advertising space, as I was mentioning. I want to walk you through this. Like the first trend is in advertising space, and that's where we eventually started building out our technology first. We've seen that everything goes digital. And by the year 2019, you would have, as you see, over 50% internet advertising revenue versus non-digital ones. And the second trend we've seen was that digital actually goes mobile. So you see here that over 60% is actually advertising revenue in 2019 will be spent on mobile. And from that revenue, everything becomes programmatic. So actually, you're not calling New York Times and saying, can you please chart an ad for people from 15 to 17 right now for 3 minutes, and then shut it away, and then come with another ad. That's not happening anymore. At some point, that happened. So everything is fully automated by 2019. And as we've seen these 3 trends, we've seen 3 very disruptive issues, and that's basically the whole reasoning for why we exist as a Gamewheel product. First of all, everybody needs to understand technology, and we all know here like how to build VR and AR, and we know some studios, they are actually really excellent at it, but how to build it on scale requires a different understanding on the branding and agency side. And secondly, the whole advertising, even though it's going towards mobile, it's not really performant on mobile because everything is done in a static way as it was been done like ages ago, but just transferred to mobile. It doesn't necessarily make sense. So the click-through rate is basically the number which is the most important number indicating how many people actually react to the ad and go to the actual landing page is less than 0.1%. And the last but not least thing, like through automation, obviously you see a lot of transparency. And in this transparency, you see that actually the value chain doesn't make sense. So some people basically try to do things which are not really well thought through for brands just to get more revenue out of the value chain. So these are the 3 kind of fundamental issues we've seen. And on the other side, we've seen that a lot of these issues are being already addressed through automation, which kind of creates this new world where advertising technology is sort of commodity. So everybody could run Facebook on Facebook an ad. You don't have to be an expert in anything really to do it. I think, and also in other platforms, it is going to be the same. So this is where we started looking at the world, and we thought like, hey, actually, after we have released that AR game, a lot of brands and agency asked us, can we maybe do this as well? Like, can we also do something like that? And it was 2014. And we kind of thought, yes, actually, it makes a lot of sense. Like, before 2012, everybody was doing just a bit of resizing of the ads. Then afterwards, actually, that's where we released everybody was dreaming of like very interactive content on mobile, but everybody was just doing some rich media ads and maybe simple questions. And then at some point, gamification started to kick in. Here you see actually one of our games from Burger King, which we've done in 2015 and 2016. And then afterwards, I mean, right now it's quite obvious that Pokemon Go has opened a completely new space, and also Pokemon Go has to be mentioned at least once in every pitch. But it's going to be over at some point. But what's not going to be over is that people start to understand what you can do with locations, sensors, what you can do with all these mobile devices, which we have in our hands. So this is basically the business idea we started pursuing end of 2014. And we saw that there's a huge opportunity to do some interactive content creation in the internet already for the advertisers. And we created Gamewheel. And Gamewheel launched in sort of 2015, end of 2015, as the first programmatic creator for gamified content, which was targeting specifically the advertising space. But in a way that it is built for AR, VR world already. So it's not really what you see is not what we want to build. It's just if you compare like Apple One to what iPhone is about, there's also quite a big difference. So you have to start with what's working. And what was working is a few simple games, like casual games, were winning over mobile. Everybody was playing Candy Crush. Everybody was playing very simple games, match-free games, all kind of really simple games. And we said, why won't we just take these simple games and build a library of these games which definitely work, so everyone can edit them through the first step, and then just create their own content like this. Because there are some technology which is already working in the web, and we can influence what they present to the user. So if we know AR doesn't work well in every browser, then we probably shouldn't offer them AR yet. But if we know, for example, VR works in every browser yet, then why wouldn't we just let them create a VR game online? So that was the logic we kind of applied, and it actually worked out pretty well. So we built this tool, which is more or less 4 steps, and you have a game online. It's like YouTube. You just upload a few pictures instead of the video, and then you have a URL, and that URL runs on every device. And you don't have to code or understand game design or understand VR, AR. It just works. So this is basically the tool for creatives. And it is, after the launch, has been just really discovered by a lot of people with very simple games. We've been able to acquire brands like Burger King who were like saying, yeah, cool, finally I can do something without understanding the whole technology. And we've run a lot of different campaigns. And for example, the creative agency from Burger King has discovered it and said like, hey, it just works. So I just don't want to know why and when things will work on mobile, but I just want to have something which just works. So just to pick up the story which we were saying, this is where we are. Like, while we are talking about AR and VR in the mainstream markets, this is where we are. Like, we are right now just hitting the gamified mini games kind of content where everybody on mobile is able to play it everywhere without installation, without headsets, without any barriers. You can just click on a link and just go. And I think that is what is needed to establish a mainstream kind of technology. As long as we are trying to put people some devices on, it's not going to be mainstream. It's going to be used at home, where I don't necessarily feel embarrassed for wearing something like that on the face. So just to say that we believe that we actually have to solve this magic triangle, and in a way we are doing that with Gamewheel, and we're slowly moving towards AR, VR right now again. So we kind of creating on-scale interactive content without coding, but in a way that it actually is super interactive and engaging on every mobile. So it's not creating barriers. It's actually engaging. It's fun. It's simple. Everybody could use it. So this is what we've been focusing on. And right now, I mean, we've been running a lot of different campaigns, and we've been focused on getting as much as we can with the technology we have on scale done. And that's why we've been actually decreasing the amount of interactivity to the bare minimum of what is needed to get a lot of traction, as a startup should be focused on. We have a very experienced team with a lot of experience in AR, but I want to use a little bit of the time we might have left to show you what we've, like how we basically started. So the app we released was Toy Car RC, and that was 2014. So we went to all the charts on the #1s, and we've been featured several times by Apple globally, but still, at some point, the downloads and the engagement was not sufficient to say, as a game studio, hey, this is a cool business. Because for this, you need a very different type of simplicity for the, like, everybody wants to try AR, but nobody wants to use it every day still. I'm not sure how you are. Like, are you using, how many times a week you're using AR, for example? Like one time, everyone? More than one? More than 5 times a week? Yeah, so it will come. I mean, we all know it will come, but I think for now, most of us are not doing it yet daily. But I want to encourage you actually to try it out. So normally, I asked in my small interview to download that app. It's free. So if somebody of you have that app, that we have these markers, and you actually could point the device on the screen, and you would see a virtual world around you. And it would change, basically, depending on the marker we have. Another thing which we're doing right now, we're basically taking every casual game which we build in 2D into VR. Because actually the game mechanics are really fun, and everybody knows them. But in VR, they feel very differently. So that's what we've basically been focusing on. And you can play the VR Pong also online if you just go to gamewheel.com/Pong. That's our demo, which you can play with even more people. Like, you can actually play against each other. It's a multiplayer game in VR. But the last but not least, I just want to leave you with one important message in terms of AR and VR, as we are still in this kind of context of VR and AR. We believe, from our perspective, what's actually going to become mainstream is AR. So we are big believers in AR for 5 reasons, which are there. Like, first of all, every mobile device does have already all capabilities which we need to run really cool VR and AR things, but AR is much more intuitive. And for the high sort of use cases, for high amount of use cases, you don't need any specific hardware to buy. You don't need any things to put. You don't have a barrier. You can just use your phone, and straight off you are in the AR experience. And it's also just extending the real world. It's much more natural for the people to actually use it as we use our mobile devices. And also, currently, the new iPhone already has it. the stereo camera, that is what we've been waiting for like 2 years, because at some point we recognized end of 2014 in the discussion with Apple. Actually, we had like this funny story because they invited us for a meeting asking, what can we do to help you create better games on Apple? And we said hardware, because software is really good, but without that camera, we actually can do more natural interactions, and that's what I think AR is already capable of. So basically, AR is really child-friendly, and it's not really creating any barriers. That's why we more believe in AR, and over time, there will be more and more templates on our platforms. Right now, if anyone is interested in creating a use case, we're still working on individual campaigns with bigger brands this year until it's mainstream. It's kind of a little bit more custom. But I just want to encourage you to think about it as a normal content, like WordPress, Squarespace, whatever tool, Word, like think about it in a way that you can create it yourself. And the moment that happens, I think we're gonna talk. So, and we are here to make that happen. So if you have any questions about AR, VR, and what's working, what's not working on scale, just let me know. I'm happy to have a chat. We are in Berlin, but we're also traveling around the globe to share that vision of gamification yourself. Thanks.